Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio Network, a wholly owned subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Educate, enlighten, entertain, and let's not forget mindfulness. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about the article that is not only appearing in Time magazine, but in several other places. What are sanctuary cities and why is Trump targeting them? Now, some people do know what a sanctuary city is, and basically it's a city that's offered refuge for immigrants to come and live and be protected by the city as long as they stay within the city limits from the Justice Department and the President of the United States. However, our current administration has turned things around. And this article was written by Rebecca Schneid, Schneid, and it appeared on February 13th of this year, 2025. Their new immigration policy has been put into an executive order that was signed by the current administration in his first few weeks of office this year, and it redefines birthright citizenship, suspending the U.S. refugee admissions program, and declaring a national emergency at the border. And beyond his actions, he has focused specifically on these sanctuary cities or sanctuary jurisdictions. In the order that the administration signed, he titled it Protecting the American People Against Invasion. And he asserts that the Attorney General and the Secretary of Homeland Security should ensure that sanctuary jurisdictions, which his executive order says seeks to interfere with the lawful exercise of federal law enforcement operations, do not receive federal funding. Now, back in 2017, our current administration tried something similar. During his first week in office, he signed an executive order stating jurisdictions that did not comply with federal immigration's operations by his administrations would not receive federal funds. Numerous cities and counties sued, and some courts repeatedly upheld the legality of the sanctuary of these cities' laws. This time, the executive order also asserts that jurisdictions and local officials can and should be criminally or civilly investigated or persecuted if they adhere to sanctuary policy and do not assist U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement, which is ICE, in their new immigration policies, something that San Francisco City Attorney David Chu says is indicative of the current administration, doubling down and escalating his former attempts. Here's everything you should know about these sanctuary cities and the battle that's ensuing between those of these places and the current administrations. So, you're probably asking yourself, what are sanctuary cities? There's no legal or universal definition of the phrase, but these are commonly regarded as jurisdictions which have policies that limit or define the extent to which local state government will share information with federal immigration law authorities. Mark Fleming, an associate director of the National Immigration Justice Center Federal Litigation Project, says the term sanctuary cities is somewhat of a misnomer, considering they are in reference to a variety of jurisdictions and states throughout the U.S., with a wide range of laws in place to limit their cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. For example, one sanctuary policy of New York City bars city officials from sharing information about immigrants unless it is regarding a criminal matter or there is written permission by an individual immigrant to do so. Democrats have long championed these policies as a way to create safe and welcoming environment for immigrants. Jill Habig, founder and president of Public Rights Project, a national nonprofit that works with the state and local governments to enforce civil rights, is currently working with Portland to fight back against the current administration's legal and political fight with sanctuary cities. She says sanctuary cities have adapted these laws in order to create trust between immigrant communities and law enforcement. If immigrants, quote, fear that their local police are going to turn them over to ICE, then they may not report a crime that's affecting everyone. It's really the principle that cities have been deploying for decades to say, we want to make sure everyone in the community feels safe and that they feel comfortable, that they can access city services without fear of deportation. And that makes cities safe. In 2017, a study by the Center for American Progress conducted during a former administration's first term, the center reported that there were on average 35.5 fewer crimes committed per 10,000 people in sanctuary counties compared to non-sanctuary counties. 2020 Cambridge University study also found that when local law enforcement works closely with ICE, undocumented immigrants are less likely to report crimes, which undermines public safety, one of the researchers said to The Hill. There's often an assumption that sanctuary cities' policies are just about an ideological perspective on immigration rights, but it's also supported just by sound policy around public safety, Hilbeck says. In January 2025, a statement from the California Police Chief Association, which represents all 334 municipal police chiefs in the state of California, echoes this desire for cooperation between immigrant communities and law enforcement. The association said that local law enforcement should not, quote, shield dangerous individuals or restrict our agencies and officers from investigating and apprehending serious or violent offenders, unquote. However, sanctuary jurisdictions aren't going to stop what we're going to do. Thomas Homan, our current administration's former acting director of ICE, Anu Bardazar, said in an interview with News Station in December. Fleming and Haybeck maintain, though, that the crackdown is occurring against large groups is not the majority of the deportations that ICE and the current administration will try to complete in his time in office, something he himself has admitted to. They're trying to do this sleight of hand where they connect all immigrant and immigration enforcement to the things that the American people broadly support, which is border security and border safety, and the deportation of folks who have been convicted of violent crimes. Comment: a 2-year-old child was deported. He committed a violent crime, folks, in his past life. And because he was reborn and he's only 2 years old, that makes him a victim, unquote, an opinion. Newly installed Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy issued a Department of Transportation order in January that threatened to shift federal transportation funding away from local governments that don't cooperate. Well, opinion, so much for state rights. On February 6th, the DOI went a step further and sued the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago, accusing the authorities of impeding on the present administration's immigration enforcement policies. Beyond Chicago, Boston, Denver, and New York City also received letters from Republican Representative James Comer, the chair of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, stating that he is launching an investigation into sanctuary jurisdiction. The mayors of the 4 cities were invited to testify. Sanctuary jurisdictions and their misguided and obstructional policy hinder the ability of federal law enforcement officers to effectuate safe arrest and remove dangerous criminals from American communities. Comer wrote, what is he going to write about the 2-year-old that was deported on a cancer operation, and she was also deported with no medication and nobody to help her after having that cancer operation? There are around 20,000 ICE agents employed across the United States, according to the ICE's website, whereas there are more than 18,000 local police departments in the United States, employing more than 1 million officers. On February 7th, several sanctuary cities, led by San Francisco and including Portland, New Haven, Santa Clara, and Kings County, sued to check this abuse of power. We prevailed on these issues during this administration. We believe that federal judges who adhere to the rule of law will be consistent with the law, Chu says, who is city attorney of San Francisco, is leading the effort. During this president's first term of president, the city and then president over similar policies, and the Ninth Circuit agreed with them. The Supreme Court then declined to hear the case. From our perspective, the administration actions clearly violate the law, so we're not expecting a difference. What he's doing isn't constitutional and illegal as it was 8 years ago. Chu bases the legality of sanctuary cities on the Constitution's 10th Amendment, which separate power between the states and the federal government. He also said that this current administration actions violate the separation of powers doctrine, the spending clause, the due process clause, and the Administrative Procedures Act. ICE detainer requests are typically not criminal, since criminal detainers are largely issued only if there are charges pending in another jurisdiction against a person currently serving a criminal sentence, Habig points out, and this is why courts have held local governments liable for Fourth Amendment violations in the past when they have honored ICE detailer requests without probable cause. They're trying to put local governments in a bind where it's either you violate the Fourth Amendment and may expose yourself to liability for holding people illegally, or you give up your federal funding and face retaliation by the federal government. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a damned if you do and damned if you don't problem. Lest We Forget Historical is brought to you by Ruby.ai. Try it out, watch the demonstrations, and then sign up for a monthly subscription. http://AI-with-Lillian.com. And also by Conscious Research solutions. Check us out at passionateworldtalkradio.com/research made simple. Contact us with the form down below on the page, or make an appointment via calendly.com/passionate world radio for a free 15-minute consultation on how we can help you accomplish your research. And if you want to see programs like this to continue, please consider going over to our website, passionateworldtalkradio.com/donation. And keep truth, justice, and the American way going, especially if you're a woman. Thank you very much for listening, and have a great weekend.